We are live. Hello everyone, welcome to the Recruiters Hangout. Welcome back after a short break. I hope you're getting lovely weather where you are all over the world. It's beautiful in England, especially in Norwich today, so welcome back. Today we're talking about the modern recruiter, content creator, storyteller, advert writer. We'll be discussing that, job posting, what's the best practice, talking about a bit of blogging, content writing, storytelling. Are you telling the story of your business, of your recruitment business? Do you have a story? So we'll be talking a bit about that, and we've got some great guests here today. We've got Mervyn Dinnen. Mervyn has tons of experience in the content area in the recruitment industry. He's currently a resident blogger for Broadbean Technology and Monster UK. You've been involved in many different industries, I know, Mervyn, so you'll have to talk to us a bit about your background and social engagement in particular and strategy around that. I know you have an interest in that. We're also joined by Glenn Southam, who's sitting with Mervyn. Glenn's the marketing manager at Staffgroup. They're doing a lot of good things there, so I hope Glenn will tell us a bit about that. We're also joined by Mike Powell, who's the head of sales at CV Library, which is a very well-known job board, and Mike's going to be talking a bit about what he sees every day in terms of job posting and content writing, so that'll be interesting. Today, I'm afraid Alan is away at the tennis, so we've got Mark Stevens joining us. Well, he always joins us, but he's hosting today, so thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mark. Mark is involved with Smart Recruit Online and the F10 Group. We've also got Louise Triance here, who'll be keeping an eye on your Twitter posts, #RecHangout. Louise is from UK Recruiter. I am Louis Welcomme from Colleague Software. We also support the RecHangout too. With Mark is Jane, who has a lot of experience in the writing side. So, Mark, maybe you can introduce Jane at some point in the Hangout as well. Over to you. Oh, I should say, actually, on your right, next to me, will be the Webinar Jam chat. So please feel free to post your comments and questions in there. We'll get back to you. We'll pass them on to Mark and the guests. So do take part. Do feel free to ask what you want. Over to you, Mark.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Louis. Yes, Alan is at Wimbledon today. The rumours are rife that Boots, very close to Wimbledon, is doing a soaring trade in sunblock, apparently. I'm sure we'll see the tanned Alan back soon. Welcome, everybody, and should be a good session today, talking about the modern recruiter and the role of content writing, content creating, storytelling, topic that's very close to my own heart, and some great guests on today. And to start off with, as usual, we're going to go round our guests, just get them to introduce ourselves in the context of today's Hangout. So if we go to Mervyn first. Mervyn, hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mark. My name is Mervyn Dinnen. I help recruiters and HR people with content marketing and social engagement strategy. As Louis said earlier, I also write blogs for Monster, for Broadbean, for Glassdoor in the UK, UK Commission for Employment Skills, and various other sites. I've been in the recruitment industry 20 odd years, is what I'll say now. So I've seen it evolve. And I think today, we're in exciting times, because in some respects when I started, recruiters were very much masters of their own networks, masters of their sectors. They understood what was going on. They were the eyes and ears for clients, and they could keep people informed with what was going on in their market. And I think that's where recruiters are now. I think we're going back to that stage. It's people we know. It's being an authority on the sectors we're in, on job seeking itself, how it's changing and evolving. And it's also, I suppose, helping clients to understand how to access the best skills.
Okay, lovely. And sitting opposite Mervyn, we've got Glenn Southam from Staffgroup. Hi, Glenn.
Hi, Mark. Yes, I'm Glenn Southam. I've got 11, 12 years now experience in recruitment. I'm the marketing manager here at Staffgroup, overseeing 4 brands in 4 different countries. Previously to come to Staffgroup, I worked for the F10 Group, multi-sector experience. A lot of the topics that we're going to be discussing today have probably been a bugbear and a challenge of mine in the agency world for most of those 10 years from a writing perspective. So it would be good to get other people's opinions, and because I'm not sure much has changed in those 10 years that I've been working in recruitment, especially from a copywriting point of view specifically.
Excellent. Yes, I agree with you. We'll talk more on that. Thanks, Glenn. We've also got Mike Powell from CV Library. Hi, Mike. Take your mute off, Mike. Are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you. Hi there. Hi, Mark. Good stuff. Thank you for having me. So yeah, my name is Mike. I'm head of sales here at CV Library, the online job board, as many as you probably know. So I've been with CV Library for 9 years now. And within my role of head of sales, I'm obviously quite familiar with dealing with quite a large number of businesses, from recruitment agencies to actually employers and businesses looking to recruit directly as well. So I'm quite familiar with some of the do's and don'ts around posting vacancies, the content that goes within jobs, and what tends to work and what doesn't tend to work as well.
Yeah, great. I'm sure we're going to be able to demystify a few things with you today, Mike, certainly from the job board perspective. So look forward to firing a few questions over to you. Just to my left, you can see we've got Jane Peters with me. Jane's an independent recruitment marketing person who is now working for ourselves. I'm going to quickly introduce Jane so she can just say hi. I'm sure she's going to chip in at some point during the session today.
Hi there, I'm Jane Peters. I'm a recruitment marketing and PR specialist, now working for Smart Recruit Online, working on their content marketing strategy and PR. So it'd be interesting to share some views today on content strategy.
Thanks, Jane. Right, guys, so let's get stuck in. I think what we'll do to start with is we're going to go to Mervyn. Mervyn, would you mind giving us an introduction? Talk to me about how you define storytelling in line with, you know, the way that the modern recruiter, the agency recruiter works. Well, even the in-house recruiter, I guess, you know, we've all got the same objectives that we're trying to achieve. How do you define storytelling in this context? And
I think there's two or three angles I could take on this. I suppose the first thing I would say is that most candidates, most job seekers, aren't looking to apply to a checklist of competencies and achievements. They're looking for a challenge, they're looking for the next stage of their career. They're looking to be part of the vision and values of another organisation that can maybe help move them forward and help give them wider experience. And because of that, they want to be approached in a slightly different way. If you were to call a candidate and say, listen, I've got a vacancy here at ABC Limited, whilst you're running through the job spec, the modern job seeker is on their tablet, their phone, whatever, going into a site like Glassdoor, going to Google, Googling ABC, and by the time you've run through the job description, you'll say, actually, I don't want to work there. The CEO's only got a 4% rating, and there's loads of reviews about it. So the whole, I suppose, the whole cycle has changed in that job seekers have more information available, and recruiters no longer should just be matching a CV to a job spec. It's more about understanding what people want, what companies are looking for, a wider picture, and being able to, I suppose, have a much wider view on the sector they're in. So if they're an accountant looking to broaden their skills, it's actually having an understanding of how they can do that and the different ways they can do that. So a real interest in this subject matter as well.
it's quite interesting. So you're referring mostly then to the way that we engage with candidates when we find them. I was thinking before we started this hangout that a lot of what we would talk about today was positioning yourself as a storyteller, putting content out there, hoping to attract candidates to engage with you. That's part of it. I think, you know, the modern recruiter has to actually understand their market, has to obviously be seen as an authority in their market, and has to know how to access talent in the right way. So I think that's why I said there are many angles. It isn't just putting content out there and hoping people interact with it. You've got to build, I think, a broader narrative. You've got to establish some kind of authority, some kind of knowledge base, know what the problems are you're helping with. So, I mean, it's understanding clients, understanding what their issues are, and maybe creating content that shows that you know, you're in a position to understand and help them. The same with job seekers. You know, you know, a lot of people, particularly those with the sought-after skills, want to interact with a recruiter who they feel knows their market and can help move them on in their career.
So I think it's a much broader thing than just kind of putting information out and hoping to interact with it.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, you actually got into an area there quite quickly, though, with regards to, you know, how we communicate with candidates, not just writing content, but I mean, isn't there an art to the way that we communicate candidates? There's so much done through over email these days, and I see some of the emails that come to me where they think I'm a candidate, and it's just so poorly written. It's there's no way it's going to influence me to even consider it, even if I was interested in looking for a job. Probably a good opportunity to go to Glenn. You know, Glenn, talk to us from the agency perspective. Then, what are you guys doing with, you know, how are you influencing your recruiters to communicate better with their target audience? You know, in this respect, is there training that you do? Do you have a formula that you follow? You know, do you monitor what they're pushing out there?
Yeah, I think one of the big issues, following on from what Mervyn said around storytelling on behalf of clients, is that we're still in this world of contingency where a lot of recruiters have all the same jobs, and there's still this nervousness that you don't want to communicate too much because you're going to give away the job to another person, rather than flipping it and thinking, well, if I can act as an extension of my client in promoting an employer brand and things, it's more likely they're going to come to me. So I do training with all the new starters, and as such with the agency world, we get a lot of grads coming in, and they're the most enthusiastic, really. It's the people who have been in recruitment for a while that are the ones who are very hard to influence. But we do training with the grads. We encourage them to really find out about the clients. If you don't want to give the client's name away, like Mervyn said, there's details galore now online that you can find out about a client. You can find this USP here, there, and everywhere about something different about the company, about the culture, to promote from a job advert point of view, from an email point of view, just to get the attention. Because, like you say, I think we've all experienced it, getting 3 emails a day saying, my client, a lead in X, in industry X. It's just noise now. It's irrelevant. It gets deleted straight away unless you're actively looking for a job at that specific moment in time, which, as we all know, they're usually not the candidates we're going for in the main. But yeah, we do a lot of training here. We've got a wall of fame and a wall of shame upstairs around adverts and emails and mail shots and things. And that seems to kind of work in the agency environment you're in, where it's competitive and people like to have either their egos massaged and they don't like to be pulled up on bad things. So that's kind of what we do at a very basic level here.
Interesting. Wall of shame for writing content. Crikey, I think my wall would be covered sometimes. I'm regularly disappointed with poor grammar and poorly written content for people that are putting stuff out for us, and you know, I feel that, you know, you've got to continually keep on people's backs to double, treble check stuff before it actually goes out there, even just from a grammatical perspective. You know, is writing content, though, is it something that people have the natural ability to be able to do? Is it a creative part of somebody's ability? Because we talk about the modern recruiter being a marketeer, and to be a marketeer you have to be able to put content together and paint pictures and influence through the words you write. So what, you know, does the traditional recruiter, can they transfer into the modern recruiter? Can you either can't write?
I think sometimes it's down to the hiring strategy, especially in the agency world. I think there's a tendency to really go for your old school salespeople who can bash the phones, be the cheeky chappy and things like that, and the wider, softer skills, if you like, aren't really considered at that initial point. Especially in the bigger organisations where, you know, you get salespeople in because that ultimately means X amount of revenue if they're good, and it's not really a wider thinking point from a hiring strategy. I don't think it's even considered. I don't get involved in hiring recruitment consultants here. I'd like there to be a bit of a test around copy and things like that. And the one thing I'll say is that I'll do the training around copywriting, and we'll go through advert writing activities for half a day. They can write excellent adverts in that training environment. It's what you want. So when you leave the training environment and you're back on the desks, when the bad habits, if you like, can seep back in. And as you were saying, how do you keep on top of 100 recruitment consultants in 4 locations who might be working on 5 or 6 jobs at a time and writing adverts or not writing adverts? It's a very difficult thing to manage, and it needs to filter down from a marketing point of view to a manager level point of view, and they need to push each other on to get.
Yeah, I mean, it's a mindset. You know, if there's a mindset within the business that this is the way we need to do things, or we need to begin to do things, and I think people will respond to that. You don't have to hire a lot of people who have got an A star in English, for example. It's just understanding what people are interested in and understanding how to put that across.
Okay, so are we saying that we can train people to give them better ability to communicate, or are we saying that we need to sort of filter this out at the recruitment stage? I mean, we've actually started getting people to write a job advert for us as part of their application process now. One of the first things that we get them to do, just give them a load of content, say, right, go away, research this, and come back and provide us with what you think is a well-written job advert. And it's amazing how many applicants that filters out for you.
Yeah, it's the maintaining it afterwards, and should they join, isn't it? I think that's where the challenge is, because the majority of people, like Mervyn said, we hire, they're graduates, they've been to university. It's not as if we're hiring people with no literacy skills.
They've written essays, they've written dissertations.
Yeah, it's bringing it into the recruitment environment, which, big generalisation, is still 3 hours, 3.5 hours on the phone, do whatever you can. And I do think content, if we're putting it in that bubble, advert writing, is still seen as an admin task, and maybe we need to reshape the thinking there that advert writing, content writing is more of a business development activity and things like that, rather than admin, which is what I hear quite a lot.
Yeah, and also there's, I think, a belief that we need a volume. And then we complain about the volume we got, but the volume isn't right. Whereas particularly well-written, well-targeted content should cut through that and should really just speak to the people who are the most relevant.
Okay. Well, this sounds like a good opportunity to talk more about the actual job advert writing itself. As we all know, a well-written piece of copy can generate significantly more applications. Mike, I'd be interested to hear some of the stats from CV Library. How many views do CV Library need of an advert for every one person that hits the apply button? Have you got any idea at all?
Well, it can vary on the type of vacancy. I mean, we will expect a different hit rate to vacancies within more generic sectors to more niche sectors, of course. And I think that large amount of what we have to do here daily is we have to spend an awful lot of our time actually educating people all day long on actually advert writing and making it appear in the best possible format to that type of candidate. And it comes back to, for me, really bespoke in the ad to the type of candidate is you're trying to attract. And naturally, if I'm writing an advert to attract salespeople for my sales team, it's going to look an awful lot different to when we're trying to attract an IT developer to a new part of the team that we're growing here. And that could come from a different type of person. Maybe me being in sales, I'm a little bit more tailored to write an advert to gear up to find a salesperson. And that's very much what we find when we're speaking to recruiters, and also from an employer's point of view as well, is are they actually educated well enough on how to write them to attract enough people, actually just in the first instance to actually attract the volume. I'll give you an example of a gentleman I spoke to. Obviously, I won't embarrass anybody and name any names, but I spoke to a gentleman last week who was looking to advertise an engineering vacancy with us. And his actual words to me were, can't I just put I'm looking for an engineer, please. And I think that says a lot about the amount of work that really does need to go into educating people who maybe haven't been in recruitment for a long period of time. And it comes back to a point somebody made earlier. Do you actually need to be a storyteller? Do you actually need to be able to write in order to attract the right candidates? And I think a lot of it comes down to the passion for selling that role, and actually having the passion to have that come across in the job advert itself, along with the actual content.
I'm guessing an understanding of what's going to influence the candidate and incorporating that early on in the job advert is going to have a massive influence as well, especially the way that job adverts are presented to a candidate. If I run a search in a job board, I'm only going to see the first paragraph or so as a summary, and given that, let's say, I don't know, more than 50% are very passive candidates, just tentatively looking, not committed or totally engaged in finding a job, I think that would be a fair assessment. I would imagine that first paragraph's got to be pretty powerful to get people, A, to open up the rest of the advert, and then the rest of that advert to influence them to believe that this job's going to be better than the one they currently got.
Yeah, that's a really fair assessment, and you're exactly right. And too many recruiters, I think, spend too long on this, especially on the first paragraph, maybe focusing a little bit more towards the actual company itself and what the company is about. And something that we certainly kind of try to push and encourage a lot more is to talk a lot more about what that position actually is and what exactly they're going to be doing in that first paragraph, something that's going to catch that candidate's attention at that time. Because as you said, when you're scrolling through looking for jobs on job boards, some job boards will give you much more content in that first paragraph than others. If you look at some other job boards, you may actually, in some instances, you only get the job title and the salary and the main town. With others, you will get all of that information alongside an initial paragraph. Now that paragraph is designed to attract your attention. That is designed to attract that candidate at that moment, to make them want to open that vacancy. And for me, too many times it's focused, as I say, on who the company is, what industry that company is in, when actually I think what the candidate would like to know a little bit more is what is that vacancy actually going to mean they're going to be doing, and what are the kind of key skills that are required to do that job. And another thing that we kind of coming across even more so is this listing of keywords. I'd like to get more opinions on that, because that seems to come up a lot now, is people actually listing multiple keywords at the bottom of their vacancies over and over again to hope that will attract more candidates when writing their content, when actually in many cases, certainly with CV Library, it actually penalises you.
So what are your guidance notes on keyword optimization in an advert? Typically, how many keywords and how many times should you use them?
On average, you should use the job title 5 times. That's certainly what we would recommend that would attract the candidate. We have many examples where listing it more than that will actually penalise you as a recruiter. So actually can be seen as spamming the actual job content itself. So we would recommend 5 times. Obviously, we would say you need to have the job title in its entirety. That's going to be the most searchable phrase. And we have many examples where different phrases are now being used for different types of jobs that actually you have to think, would a candidate actually search for that as a job title? And it's all good having a quirky job title, which is maybe something a little different, but think of it from I suppose a productive point of view. If a candidate is looking for a customer service vacancy, for example, that is ultimately what they're going to be searching in there. So in many cases, if your job title is a little bit out there and a little bit out of the ordinary, maybe also have that tag and that link to something a little bit more commonly searched on. So yeah, I mean, certainly we seem to suggest around about 5 times seems to be the key to have it appear as prominent as possible.
Okay, thanks, Mike. We've got a question that's come through from Joe. I can't quite work out exactly what the question is. I'm going to read his question out, and then perhaps there's a theme in here anyway which we could talk on. Joe said tailoring content to the company culture is a must. He's sure that everybody will agree. His question is whether it's the content that should influence the culture, or if the culture should be reflected in the content, and what happens if the two conflict. I guess even if, I don't know whether, does anybody want to pick up on that question, or should we just perhaps get some ideas on people's thoughts on how much company culture should appear in a job advert? How important is that?
Well, I'll just add to what I said a second ago, to what value I can add to that really is that the company culture is it for me, when you're writing a job description, I think it is important, because I think it's a very, very good idea to give the candidate an idea of what to expect. What type of environment are they going into? What type of culture does that company implement? And I think from our point of view, it does need to be involved, but it doesn't need to be involved as the kind of main content of the job description. And something we see far too often is the actual whole job advert just being based around that. And I can read numerous jobs and actually think, do you know what? I've got no idea what I'm actually going to be doing day to day when I start that position. So for me, my own opinion is the company culture is important to be included, but I don't think it needs to be prominent or the main focus of the job description itself.
Surely when you're scrolling through looking for a job, if we're talking about active candidates, you're going to be scanning jobs, aren't you, on job boards, on job aggregators and so forth. And then once you get into it, perhaps they can go into the job detail and the company culture, and if they're brave, if they've set up something on their own website with more detail, they can click through and get more information there. But at this point, we're talking about attracting them in the immediate and getting their interest in the first place, hooking them, I suppose. And no one wants to read paragraphs and paragraphs of text in the first instant, I assume.
No, you're right, Lee. Mervyn, can we come back to you? Have you got any thoughts on how any tips or tactics on how people can get more out of their job advert writing? Anything to do with structure? What should go in those first few paragraphs? How much content should be selling the opportunity? How much should be qualifying?
I don't write job ads. I help people with obviously the blog and the other content. What I would say is that the mistake that most job ads make is it's all about the company and the recruiter. And when people read, as you know, if you put out blog content on your site, it's all about the reader. And job ad should be about the reader. So it's about what's in it for them. When they read it, whether they read the first 2 or 3 lines or whether they read all 5 or 6 paragraphs, what's most important to them is what's in it for them. I agree that culture is important, but obviously company culture isn't always what somebody says it is. It's actually what it's like to work there. So, there's lots of companies describe their culture in a certain way, and if you go back to research about why people leave jobs inside the first 3 months, various things keep coming up. One is onboarding, the other one is the fact the culture wasn't what they were led to believe. So you need a certain amount of honesty, and I would probably slightly disagree with Mike in that I think that the culture to a lot of job seekers, not all of them, but a lot of them, would be more important than the actual role. And if you're a customer service manager, you're going to do a relatively similar job between company to company, but you're going to have a real fix on the type of company you want to do it for and the kind of opportunities you want to come with that role. So I think those sides of the job ad, whilst on a quick search might not seem to be the sexiest to look for, I think those are the things that make people go from reading it to click to apply. Okay,
good. I think that would be a good opportunity. We've covered quite a bit so far in the first half of the show today. We've looked at email content, storytelling, and also article writing. I think now would probably be a good time to move on to talking about blogging, because this is obviously a very contentious topic with a lot of recruitment business owners and even businesses themselves who want to gain access to these talent pools, to these unique candidates, and build up these contacts for people that could potentially apply for positions with them in the future. I think, Mervyn, I'm going to come back to you again because I know this is your area of expertise. Talk to us about when you first go into a company and you talk to them about writing content and pushing content out there. How do you start that conversation? Do you start by evaluating what they want to achieve, what they currently do, and then what are the first stages of them starting a content marketing type strategy?
Well, I suppose I come from the kind of digital hippie brigade, so I don't go in initially talking about kind of ROI and clicks and views and this, that, and the other. It's more about the message. What are they trying to establish? So, when I go into companies, I'm obviously the independent. So I go into HR, recruitment, technology companies. I write blogs. I'm putting content out there that people will interact with. I'm not necessarily selling a product. What I say to what each company needs to know is who are they trying to reach. First of all, what is the point? Are they trying to get a message out there, we're a great business to deal with, in which case they need to show that in different ways. There's no point writing a series of blogs about how great they are. If they're trying to get people to come and interact with them, be it potential clients, be it candidates, then it's, do they understand what those people are interested in? So if you're an HR, I mean, one of the businesses that you see I write for is an HR search business. And there I look at topics like performance management. The one that was posted yesterday was about how leadership development is changing. I write pieces that will interest HR directors and get them reading and talking and interacting, because that's a particular market or a particular pool that we're looking for. I think that for recruiters there are lots of opportunities, because you're looking to get hold of clients, or attract clients rather, and you're looking to attract candidates as well. So you've got, when I was at JobSite, which I didn't mention before, obviously I was the content community manager at JobSite, we had quite specific differences between posts that I would write which were at the corporate market, the client market, in which case we had companies direct, recruitment agencies and in-house. So that was very much more about the mechanics of hiring, the kind of candidates you look for, much more HR issues, I suppose. And for the job seekers, it was very much helping them to understand how job seeking changes, giving them the ammunition maybe on kind of asking better interview questions, better preparation, better CV, that kind of thing. So you've got to establish the authority. So what is it that company specialises in, and what do they want people to see they specialise in, and then try and look at a way to do that. Now, you either write think pieces where people can think about them, interact with them, comment on them, or you can go for the 5 interview questions you must ask if you're an engineer, or 6 things engineers can learn from Kanye West at Glastonbury, or those kind of clickbait things if you want, but you can't build a whole strategy based on them, because they ultimately will come across as being a bit lightweight.
Okay. I think we want to deploy. You guys mute. There's a bit of noise in the background. So when you go into a business, then, I mean, let's say that the business wants to deploy a content marketing strategy, and I guess you need to find somebody in there that's got the capability of putting that content together and pushing it out on a regular basis. I'm guessing understanding what the objectives are, because just establishing yourself as an authority without a clear objective of either attracting new candidates to apply to you as a business, or to attract candidates to apply for your jobs, or to potentially win new customers and clients. I'm guessing that has to be all factored in as part of what you're doing. Any thoughts on what sort of tactics do your clients use to try and meet those objectives within their content? Because if I'm writing a blog, am I just pushing it out there, or am I trying to add things in there to tease the client into engaging, and the calls to action? Does that all come into play?
Well, it can do. Again, I mean, a lot of people produce blog content to start conversations, because they're not looking for it. It's kind of not like a daily email from Gap you get, where they've got today's bargain and they want people to click and buy. So it's a long-term build. But yeah, I mean, there will be companies that want to understand how to drive interactions immediately that they can then convert. So they're going to want to track where they come from. You get people who want to establish, I say, a body of authority, that these guys understand the market, and therefore they're people we need to talk to. It very much helps with a longer-term strategy. I mean, if you want to, if your aim is to get 10 new clients this month, then writing a blog isn't going to do that, because it needs to be shared. It can take a long time. I mean, as Louise would say, I've won UK Recruiter Blog of the Year award before, but I mean, I didn't do that on my first couple of blogs. It took 3 or 4 years to build that up. So I think that it's not a quick win, and I think most companies who want to start content marketing from a point of view of actually kind of putting a blog type content on their site have to understand it's a slow build. you know, not one blog. I think Glenn's going to come in on this in a second. I think one blog isn't going to do that. I mean, if you share it socially and through things like LinkedIn, and you put that on your regular email communication, you get your sales guides. So I used to produce content, say, back at job sites, so that when the sales teams were talking to clients, they had something to talk about. So they could link them back. You know, we've written about this. Have you seen our new piece on this? Or, you know, we've been doing a lot around your sector. Or it's really just getting people, I suppose, engaging them at different levels. Glenn might come to more the metrics like that.
Yeah, a bit of both really. Obviously, having an in-house resource on the agency side helps. I'm a team of 3, if you like, 2 here in London and a guy in Berlin. And a lot of our content and our blogging strategy, it's just we have to plan. We plan on a quarterly basis of what we're going to talk about on a proactive side, and then we do react to stuff. So, you know, a couple of weeks ago here in London, it was London Technology Week. Yeah. So we knew knew a lot of in advance. Right, this week's going ahead. Who works the London market, tech here in the business? What can we talk about? Why is London important? We get the blogs done for that. Last week, National Women in Engineering Day was on Monday or Tuesday. We spread it out for a week, talked about the women here who work in the engineering sector. What can we blog about there? And it's amazing what you get in terms of other consultants seeing their colleagues' face being pushed out on LinkedIn to thousands of followers, us being able to influence other areas of the business, incorporating the links to the blogs on email signatures. Every email that goes out from the business for a week then has that blog. It just increases. We build it into Google Analytics and things like that, where people come from, how many people clicked on the blogs, and then it's communicating it internally in terms of success. From a very basic level, how many views, to the more anecdotal evidence of a client sending an email saying, oh, I saw your blog, or a candidate saying, oh, I saw your blog, have you got any jobs on, and things like that. I wasn't previously looking. Then we communicate that, and it does snowball. We didn't do any content or blogging probably from summer last year, and now across the 4 brands, we're probably doing 1 a week. So 16 different blogs a month across the 4 brands, and it's a habit now. We've got enough employees to work on it. We get the consultants involved. They don't write the blogs, but we'll give them 4 or 5 bullet points to comment on, and then as the experts, in inverted commas, will go away, my team will go away, we'll fill it out, we'll make it relevant, get those call to actions, the subtle call to actions in place, and push it out across the social media, the email marketing side of things, and obviously provide it to the consultants to push to their networks also.
Well, there's a couple of great points that came out of there, something I'm going to use ourselves. So taking your best blog and then actually attaching it as a link to everybody's email signature for the next week, what a great idea. That's properly utilising the content that you've generated. It's also applying some control as well. I was also interested to hear that you're planning your content strategy over a 3-month period. I mean, that sounds very, very organised, you know, and I'm sure there's a lot of businesses and people listening to this that might be thinking, crikey, we're nowhere near that organised. Either we just haven't got ourselves into a team and got ourselves as a unit, put a plan together, or I can also guess that probably they're allowing their staff, their recruiters, to do their own blogging and posting their own content out there. And this leaks back into a question that somebody asked earlier. I think Laura asked a question, said, you know, how do you control the content that's being going out there? How do you track what's being pushed out by your staff? But I mean, evidently, Glenn, you're got a much more organised environment than that because you're controlling it. But maybe Mervyn, maybe you could chip back in here again, and you must have come across this when you're talking to companies. They're allowing their staff to write content, try and establish themselves as the go-to person in the marketplace.
I think the word control is a bad word to use. Encourage maybe is better. But yeah, I mean, you do want your individual consultants to be experts. And so I was lucky enough when I was working in HR recruitment. I was with a company that encouraged us to do that kind of thing because that established us as an independent expert, if you know what I mean. So I think it's important that you encourage a culture of content creation. And you've got to trust. I think trust is important. I mean, there will be people, you'll have, I mean, there was research done last year, something like 88% of employees have a social media account globally. Don't use it all the time, they have one. Half of them mention work on social media at some stage. And it could just be anything from, oh God, it's Sunday night already, I hope the alarm doesn't go in the morning, which implies it's not a great place to work, to just saying about, wow, great week at work or whatever. And 1 in 6 of those have said something on social media about their job they regret having said. So if you're in a large company, that's quite a lot. And I think it's just accepting that that's the way it is. But you need to encourage people to share good content, and that comes from people believing in the company, understanding what the plan is, what the marketing plan is, what they're trying to achieve, and wanting to play a part in it, which comes back to culture, it comes back to rewards, because if you reward people purely for making phone calls and closing deals, that's all they'll do. If you somehow build in some kind of reward, however it is, for actually creating content, for actually attracting candidates another way, then that's what they will do as well. And I think that it's somebody within the business needs to, I suppose, have access to all the social media accounts. I don't mean follow them, but I mean just be aware of what the consultants are saying online. I dare say on LinkedIn everybody will be connected, so you'll know that. But I think it's just encouraging people to share. Hey, I've written this blog. Everybody look at it. And so others will say, my colleague's written a blog about this. You might like it. It just keeps people within the company. It keeps candidates and clients tied into the business, believing that as a business, you understand what it is you're doing.
So am I right then in saying it's encouraging it to become a cultural thing, so that the company is embracing it, but also all the other staff that aren't involved in it get involved in sharing it and pushing it out there?
And that's all through the company, because if the people at the top, so I suppose if management directors don't do it, then nobody will do it. If the manager's too busy to do it, then everybody else will be too busy. Whereas, sorry, you're about to say more.
Sorry, no, go on, finish what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I mean, it has to be, you need directors who are happy to do that, you need managers who run their own social media accounts and are updating things on LinkedIn, maybe putting up, LinkedIn, make it very easy to publish content there. That's what they want you to do all the time. So LinkedIn Publisher, everybody has it now, you can write anything. And so it's a very easy way to do it, all your connections see it fairly immediately. So I think that the culture has to be from the top down. It's not kind of, it might start bottom up. So managers and directors might get into it because they see the consultants doing it, but it's got to be something that the whole company does and not just individuals. You might have champions who are better at it than others, and that's fine as long as you celebrate that and share that. But yeah, as soon as you get some people in the organisation who say, well, I don't have the time for that, I'm far too busy, then you won't create a culture.
So, okay, the big question that a lot of business owners are probably going to be asking at this point is, we encourage people to do this, but how do we measure it? How do we measure how effective this is being? What are the metrics that you would encourage a business owner to put in place? And then, Glenn, perhaps you'll tell us what you're doing.
Every business will differ, Mark. Every business will differ. I mean, I think what's important is share of voice, sentiment. So what is the general, on social media channels, there are plenty of tools to measure this. Are people talking about you? Are they talking about what you're talking about? What's the sentiment when people reference your business? What's the sentiment? I mean, that's key, because that helps in buying decisions. I mean, there's plenty on the mainstream brand marketing side. There's plenty of research that shows that positive sentiment drives others to make purchasing decisions. I think that if you're going to say you lot write blogs providing at the end of the quarter I can see you've each made 3 placements from them, then don't start. Because once you get down to that, then you're not using it in the right way. I mean, it's not there purely to close a sale or to create one. It is there to build brand awareness, build consultant awareness, build engagement with the business from clients and candidates. So I think individual companies, and Glenn will talk about what they do, will have their own measures, but me, as the kind of overall, will say, don't start with the measurement, start with kind of the message. And then we'll look at ways where we can track or see how that message is being consumed.
Yeah, if someone was to ask me, if Mark or Paul, the owners here, were to ask me how much money have we made from blogging or content creation, I'd say I haven't got a clue. I'll be completely honest, I haven't got a clue. Obviously, I could give the pure metrics as we discussed, the number of clicks, the number of views, and things like that. What I can say is that internally, and something that we have started, is that we have built it into monthly and quarterly objectives for consultants to contribute to content, whether it's writing a blog, whether it's doing a publish on LinkedIn, or being this Friday hot seat that we do. We have that. Do we try to attribute any cash to it, any placement fees? No. We can do it a lot easier with job adverts, going back a bit, because that's easily tracked through our website via the CRM to the placement. You can track that all the way. So content creation from a point of job adverts, great, we can do that because we go through the whole candidate journey. But unless we get a candidate coming to us who says, the reason I have applied for this job or I am working for you is because I read this blog, or a client says, oh, I want to give you 3 exclusive roles because I see you're a great authority because of this blog. It's kind of those things where I think the industry kind of needs to grow up a bit and realise that this isn't going to be an immediate return on investment. It is a longer relationship building thing. But what does show, when you get those times when an email does come in from a candidate or client, it's celebrated. You need to celebrate it. It needs to be pushed out. And the consultants love getting those emails that come through rather than, I'm not going to work with you, or stop sending me stuff like this. The difference that it makes to a consultant's belief in the approach is huge when it says, I really like that piece, that's a really good piece, keep sending me stuff in the future, which we get now. We get that on a monthly basis. The modern world means you hear more about the negatives than the positive feedback. You go on Glassdoor or TripAdvisor, and that's testament to that. It's either 5 stars or 1 stars usually. But we celebrate the wins. We push the champions, as Mervyn said. The one thing I slightly disagree with Mervyn on is you will get individuals who point blank to refuse, and sometimes you just have to leave them be. And more often than not, the people who refuse to do it are bringing in big bucks, and they have been for a number of years, and you kind of have to just accept them as as lone wolves who are going to carry on making money the way they've made money, I think. But can they make more money?
But that's a different topic.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've done a hangout on kind of appeasing the big dinners, but that's...
I'm just conscious of time. We've got about 10 minutes left. I brought Jane in today. She's going to share a few things. She's been working in content marketing in the recruitment space for about 8 or so years now, is that right? Yeah. She's coming to do some stuff with us. We're taking a slightly different approach to what we're doing. We are measuring everything. We're tracking everything back. So I'm going to let Jane just sort of talk through some of the stuff that she's doing to share that with our listeners today.
Yeah, I think you can certainly apply metrics to content marketing, and I think certainly using a planned approach is the best way. We use a series of landing pages. Also, we use the blog. Our strategy tends to be obviously driving engagement with our target market, and then also once we've engaged with them, we want to give them something, we want to tell them what to do next, basically. I think you sort of give people a bit of direction within that content. So when you're using a landing page, if you've written something that somebody's read and taken the time to digest, you can intersperse that obviously with links into your blog. You can use landing pages, and you're sort of giving them an end game and telling them really what you want them to do with that content once they've digested it. So, and then obviously after that process, you can then measure what's happened with that. So say for example, if you're running an email marketing campaign, you can use one piece of content just to test that certain particular markets. You can do some A/B split testing on different markets, so you could send maybe different subject lines to each market with different pieces of content, and then after that you can measure it purely on clicks, interaction, and really what's happened with the links throughout that content. And I think that really helps to enable you to measure your whole strategy and how that's working for the business overall. In terms of developing the content, I think you can do it in two different ways. We tend to write articles, and we'll share them through social media, on the blog, and then we'll also put them into guides and things that are looked at in sort of more terms of higher value, like downloadable books, ebooks, and things like that. So if you're sending somebody something, then they're looking at it. If it's something you want them to download, you need to give it obviously a bit more detail and a bit more context. And then obviously you're going to capture that information once they've done that. So I think the whole objective of our strategy is really to, firstly, to drive engagement with our target audience, and secondly, to capture them, and then obviously use that data to formulate a relationship, and then obviously the end game for us is to build that into a client.
Jane, if I may jump in, I think you're right. You can measure it more or less by measuring engagement online and offline using a CRM. The problem is technology in recruitment is not quite up to the HubSpot level standards, and most recruitment agencies, nothing's talking to one another. Mark, I think you're not on mute. Sorry, Matt, I'm getting some feedback. So most of the recruitment technology, they're not all talking to one another. So LinkedIn, Twitter isn't talking to CRM. MailChimp, your email marketing's not talking. When eventually us technology providers get our act together, and that is, you can start to measure that relationship. You can start looking at what that relationship looks like online. And I think you're right, it's all about relationships. So this content should be a way of triggering conversations. But as Glenn's pointed out, as Mervyn's pointed out, the contingent side of recruitment, the transactional side of recruitment, will it allow the time for consultants to nurture relationships off the back of content? Or will we always remain at this sort of stage where it's just about brand awareness, just about blogging, putting it out there and raising the profile of the company? Or will it get properly followed up in a nurturable pipeline where they can build genuine relationships with clients and candidates? I've got a lot of hope for the Exec search side, especially because these guys with the retained relationships they'll have the time where inbound marketing could really work very well for some Exec search businesses. But from a salesman's point of view, I don't know whether Mike will have opinion on this or Glenn. It can be difficult to justify, I suppose, the time nurturing a long-term relationship if you're not necessarily going to get the return at the end of it. So, I mean, they need the tools, they need the technology to do this as well.
I think you're right, Louis. I think that we probably are at an advantage that we've got quite an advanced marketing team here with all the latest tools and tech, and a lot of recruitment businesses haven't invested into that. Mike, I'm going to come to you because you guys put out some good content. You use really good quality stats to get out there to tell people what's going on in the marketplace. Capturing people from your content? Are you trying to nurture candidates into signing up on your site? Are you measuring it? Do you look at each sort of campaign that's gone out and work out how effective it's been?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't claim to have too much involvement myself, but being head of sales, it's not something I get too involved in. But I know from CV Library's point of view, it's something we've really tried to focus on in the last 12 to 18 months. I mean, and I'm really interested to hear what Mervyn and Glenn have been saying about blogging, because it's kind of opened my eyes to some of it a little bit. And I know from CV Library's point of view, we've focused heavily on that in the last 18 months, is blogging out to our candidates, telling them what is new, and actually, doing that alongside the Facebook activity and the Twitter activity and the LinkedIn activity. And it comes back to trust. It comes back to gaining the candidates' trust and engaging with them to, I guess, to get their interest and have them return to read more and use you over and over again. And ultimately what that does is it does create CV registrations, but more importantly, it creates the candidate to come back and use you again and again and again. And that can be from a recruitment consultant's point of view, dealing with a candidate, or a job board dealing with a candidate. It's ultimately just as important either way,
I mean, you're coming from an industry that measures the value of a candidate's CV. So a new candidate coming in, you know that you can resell it so many times, and you get your return on investment from that. I know, talking to the guys over at JobSite, and the sort of amount of money they were spending on their TV campaigns, to build at their database. And you guys have just flown in the last few years in terms of how quickly and rapidly your site's grown. So I'd be very surprised if you guys aren't tracking it, and they aren't sort of putting a cost per acquisition on each candidate through the marketing strategy. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, it comes back to what Glenn was saying, is that it's, to a degree, it's untrackable, because unless a candidate was to say to us, we're registering because we saw your TV campaign, or we're registering because we were on the tube this morning and we saw it, it's very difficult to monitor. And the same from a recruiter point of view is, it'd be hard to gauge what we were getting back from that, from a candidate and a recruiter point of view, because it's so hard to track offline advertising as well,
Right, thanks, Mike. I think we're just running up now. We've got about 2.5, 3 minutes left, so I'd like to go to each of our guests, starting with Glenn. Just give us 1 minute. Just give us your highlight of relating to content. Last few thoughts to share with our listeners today, please, Glenn.
Well, highlights. I think it's as difficult it is you have to give your own personality to it. Make sure whatever content you're writing, you're not scared to have your own opinion about it. Don't follow the herd and things like that. Mervyn was mentioning about 5 things you can learn from Kanye West at Glastonbury and things. You can kind of predict when things are like that are going to happen, but I think give your own personality to it. We haven't really touched on it today either, but the best way to give your own personality is to try and deliver your content, maybe by video and things like that as well. It's easy now, whether that's via Instagram in 15-second spurts, whether it's something a bit more grander like a webinar or things. But give your own personality, give your company's personality to your content as much as you can.
Yep, I would agree with that. And yeah, I mean, we focus very much today on job ads and blogs and stuff, but content's consumed across a variety of formats, visual, podcasts. James spoke about white papers before. All of these are different ways that people will interact with us. So I suppose my takeaways, I always quote Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a US author and speaker around this whole space with the thank you economy and stuff like that. And he says every business now is in the media business. Every business is a media business, and the only way they can compete and gain authority is by the stories they tell and the content that they own. And I think that more and more, even smaller recruitment agencies have to see themselves as being kind of media, because if you think about it, content's at the heart of everything we've ever done. We've got job descriptions, we've got job ads, we've got CVs, and most of the time we're pushing this content around without any editing, we're taking third-party stuff and using it as our own without putting anything into it ourselves. So I think it's there, and it's a mindset, it's a cultural thing of understanding there are many ways to go about it, and maybe our markets are now beginning to consume this information in different ways, and therefore we need to present it in different ways.
Great. I think that was a really good roundup, Mervyn. Mike, do you want to chip in? We've got about 30 seconds if you want to add anything before we close out today.
Do you know what? Just to say that I think I'm on exactly the same page as what the two guys have just said. There's not a huge amount more I can add to that. I certainly, with what Glenn said around the personality side of things, for me would be the highlight.
Right. Thanks, Mike. Okay, that was a good session today. Some of my own thoughts on the back of that. You know, I think probably the most important thing is that companies need to find a way of doing something. Find their style that works for them, put their personality into it, and get everybody working together on a combined effort. There's some great stuff. Glenn, I love some of the stuff that came out on one of the bits you were talking about, adding your best blogs onto the bottom of email campaigns. I'm sure that Louise is going to put some of this in her summary document that she puts together at the end. Over to you, Louis. Do you want to give us a when our next hangout is, or any thoughts of your own?
Well, firstly, everyone who's signed up, you'll get a blog article from UK Recruiter, Louise, summarising all of this, putting some links in there to other resources, to the Staffgroup blog, to Mervyn's blog, to the CV library blog as well. So do keep a lookout for that. We'll also be sending a SlideShare transcription of this show if you want to share that with your friends and family and colleagues, and have a read through that. That's always useful as well. We haven't planned the next Hangout yet, but it will be at the end of July, August time. We've got a lot of ideas, a lot of guests lined up, so we'll get back to you with that, and you'll keep a lookout for the next show, the next episode. I did want to just say that due to some communications breakdown, I did notice yesterday that Johnny Campbell at Social Talent, they're having a webinar later today on job advert writing. Now, I know you guys have just endured an hour, but if you sign up to that, I'm sure you'll get a bit more information on job advert writing in particular, and you can always watch the recording another time. So they're great over at Social Talent. So I'll just stick the link in there. I said I would because it was a bit of bad luck that we had the same topic on the same day on there.
They'll all be worn out by now, Louis.
They will be, but they might want to get the recording and watch it another time. So it's a good gesture, I think.
Thanks, Louis. Thank you to our guests as well,
Yeah.
Mervyn, Mike,
Thank you.
Glenn, Jane.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care. See you next time.